So I want to share with you a strategy for using arguments to develop your understanding of the world. So philosophers, they like to use arguments, and I sometimes tell my students that arguments are the love language of philosophers. It's sort of how we love each other. We like to debate each other. We like to kind of get into a battle mode and defend a position and in a sense test out our position against people who are going to battle us back. And that can be very helpful because it's a good way to test our ideas. But on the other hand, I think that I want to make a distinction between two broad strategies, ways of using arguments, one which I think is far more effective in the long run at helping people to get to truth than the other. So the familiar strategy, the one that I see I think predominantly, is a kind of combative strategy where arguments are weapons. And so like the light of reason is not a tool to find truth, it's a sword to cut down people who disagree with you. And this can be kind of fun. I mean, I enjoy a sword fight from time to time, friendly battle of ideas, and I can learn from that. But if I really want to go far in understanding the truth and building my understanding of the world and helping others to see more things, then I find it far more helpful to instead put down the weapons and think of arguments as tools. And this has some very practical results, and I'm going to share 3 practical, specific ways in which thinking of arguments as tools can help you to get more out of arguments. So one way to use arguments as tools is to think of them as coming in different degrees of weight. And what I mean here is that sometimes when arguments are weaponized, they are evaluated with a very strict high bar of success. The idea is, unless this argument knocks every person down, it's a failure. And then the person who's maybe giving the argument thinks that it does, in fact, render anybody who disagrees with it a fool, right? But that's often unhelpful. I mean, that's not how we build our beliefs based in science and in experience. We weigh things. Arguments come in different degrees of weights. And so I think a very mature mind is one that can recognize that there are maybe 3 or 4 arguments, weights, that are good arguments that go against a view that I have, but I have maybe greater weights on the other side, so that in the total balance of the arguments, currently I lean in this direction. And so what I'm doing here is I'm recognizing that the arguments have degrees of weight and have a degree of value and success, even if they don't ultimately convince me. And this allows me to make more progress, because then as I collect more and more arguments, maybe eventually the scales can tip, because I've not just discounted all those arguments as unsuccessful because they fail to just force everybody to their conclusions, but rather as tools that give me little bits of weights, and they can then begin to serve me even if they don't knock everybody down. They still serve me, right? And so that's one way in which treating an argument as a tool can help me to see value in arguments with different degrees. They're not just all or nothing. Another way of using arguments as tools that I find very helpful is to think of arguments as helping people depending on their background beliefs. So what this means is that an argument is not just absolutely successful for everybody, but could be successful relative to somebody. Like if you already accept these premises, then the argument provides a pathway for you to this conclusion. And that can be true even if it doesn't provide a pathway to everybody. And so again, I'm thinking of the argument as serving people rather than as knocking them down. It's like, does this help you? Does this help you to see that this is true based on these other things you already believe? And then finally, to use arguments on topics that actually do matter, right? I mean, we have a choice about what we think about. And there's so many things we can think about. And why not think about things that actually matter to people, that can serve people? And so by building arguments on subjects that can be treasures for people, then I find that those arguments, well, I guess they're more effective. They do more good in the world. And so these are just a few little tips that I find helpful for how to get arguments to serve me rather than to just use them as weapons.